So, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest of our commercial motor webinars. It's 10:31, so let's get going. This webinar is supported by My Transport Planner. My name's Andy Salter. I'm the Managing Director of DVV Media International. We're the publishers of commercial motor and motor transport. And this webinar is supported by My Transport Planner. We're going to be focused on routing and scheduling optimization this morning. It's all about the ongoing digitization of the traffic office. And what we're going to explore this morning is ways that you can maximize the use of your vehicles, loads, to have a direct impact on your bottom line, driving transport efficiency. Before we get going, a few bits of housekeeping. We'll be running for about 20 or 30 minutes with presentations and chat. Thereafter, we'll take your questions. Please use the platform, the Zoom platform, to ask your questions, and use the Q&A on the platform. Please don't use the chat. We'll go through these questions at the end, and I'll try and get a good set of answers from you from our speakers. As ever, the webinar will be available on demand after the event, and we will send you a link later in the week to pass on to your colleagues, or to go back and review anything that you might have missed. So, okay, on with the show. I'm delighted to welcome two speakers to join us today. Scott Barry, we welcome Scott to the call. He's Head of Transport at Advanced Supply Chain Group. Scott's directly responsible for a UK fleet of over 250 trailers, 40 or so trucks, and a few vans. This multinational organisation has locations all over the world. It's got a big footprint in the garment sector, though it is active across many logistics sectors as well. We'll hear more from Scott shortly. He has some powerful observations and findings from the work he's been doing in this area of optimization, particularly around modelling and business planning. But first, I'd like to hear from routing and scheduling expert Colin Ferguson. He's the CEO of the Algorithm People. Colin will be familiar to many of you, having spoken at many of our past events and webinars. Colin's going to give us an overview of the topic of routing and scheduling optimization and take us through the latest developments of their My Transport Planner service, the company's pay-as-you-go optimization play. Colin, over to you.
Thanks, Andy, and hello everyone, good morning. I'm going to do a brief overview of the Algorithm People for those of you who don't know who we are, and the products and services that we provide. And then, as Andy has said, I'm going to do a demonstration of My Transport Planner, our platform and its capabilities. And then I'll hand back to Andy to move on to the next segment. So I'm going to share my screen with a short slide deck just to give you an overview of who we are and what we do. So the Algorithm People was formed in 2018, and we formed to create the UK's first pay-as-you-go optimization platform. And whilst we have options to pay as a service, so like a SaaS contract or a subscription service, very much the focus is on on-demand optimization. So purchasing credits and using the platform as you need to either optimize your vehicles, or we'll hear from Scott at Advance later on perhaps modeling scenarios to then decide what sort of vehicles you might need, how that works for contracts, etc. We also help fleets decarbonise and generate savings and efficiencies around the optimisation of electric vehicles and how those can be introduced into fleets, and that's another pillar of what we do. And we look holistically at fleets to find out the best way that those vehicles could interact with infrastructure, as well as optimising their general vehicles. We also have more than just the platform. We provide the consultancy, as I've said, but we also provide things like mobile apps and algorithms that can be accessed through APIs. So where the end user doesn't want to use a web interface and they perhaps want to just call on the optimization as a service, that can be accessed and provided through a supporting API. So the three pillars of what we offer at the Algorithm People is consultancy, My Transport Planner as a platform, which we are going to show you just now, and algorithms as a service. So in terms of how the My Transport Planner platform works, it's a 5-step process, which I'm going to physically demonstrate just now. But just to talk you through what I'm about to show, so you understand the process, is step 1, the user will register through our website, mytransportplanner.com. That process takes only a few minutes, where it validates who you are, you create a username and password, and then you have access to the platform. So what that means is there's no installation or integration required at that point. You simply log on to the website and then you're good to go. Step 2, the user sets the rules and preferences and submits their data to be optimized. Now, the way that that happens is you can download Excel templates that already work with the platform, or we have an API that you can connect to that connects to the platform. But when you're trialing the system out, or you're testing it out, or using it on pay-as-you-go, more often than not, clients will just download the Excel template. Once you've imported your jobs and your vehicles and depots are set up, what happens next is you hit the optimize button, and that will produce the routes that then you can download either via Excel or a PDF run sheet, or send out to an integrated mobile app. So that takes us into step 4, where you can also see the dashboard and statistics in terms of miles travelled, shift time, etc., which I'm going to show you in a moment so that you can see how it physically works. So if I share my screen on the platform now, so if you just bear with me from a switch to the slide deck. Everyone should now be able to see the My Transport Planner dashboard. So I've already created step 1 and step 2, which is register on the platform and set up my vehicles and drivers. But I'm just going to show you how you do that in the platform. So we call them resources. So resources are vehicle, driver, and or trailer combinations. So if I was to go into this record here that I've set up, the sort of thing that you would capture against a vehicle or resource would be its registration or name. Sometimes that can also be a route number if you're doing fixed routes or perhaps final mile deliveries, but where this is perhaps general transport, it's generally a vehicle registration or a vehicle name. You can set up a driver profile, as you see there on the screen. I'm not going to go into that section just now, but that's just setting up the driver's name paired to the actual resource or driver profile. As I scroll down the screen, you can see you can send the jobs automatically to a mobile application. So if that's activated and the app's integrated, then jobs will automatically be sent to the app when you've optimized or can be downloaded, as I said earlier. Sort of other vehicle parameters, I won't go into them all. Attributes, so that could be special equipment on the vehicle, tail lift, moffat mounted, things like that. Capacity can be weight, cube, pallet footprint, liters, number of jobs, visits, appointments in a day. So, you can do quite a lot with vehicle parameters, including the range of the vehicle. So again, if this was a van, an LCV, perhaps in an urban area, you might want to limit the range that it travels before it recharges. So that's where the electric vehicle aspect comes in. And then just wrapping up on a couple of other parameters, that's around the shift time, so breaks, the total hours that you're working on that particular day, and so on. You can also control the speeds the vehicles travel. So HGV speeds are default, but you can actually speed that up or slow that down depending on the type of vehicle as well. So that's the vehicle section. I'm I'm going to come out of that now, and really I want to focus on the route planning aspect of it. So if I go straight to job management here, job management is where you would go in there and you would import your Excel file that you've downloaded from the My Utility section in the top toolbar. That also has tutorial videos on how the platform can be used, this makes it a truly self-service platform, although we do support all of our clients, setting the system up, providing the training and supporting them as they go. Let's assume that we've imported our jobs, the vehicles and depots are set up. From a transport planner's point of view, you would go into the job allocation section. So let's go there now. So I've got a data set down the southwest of England, and you can see there that you've got red circles on the map, and those represent jobs that need to either be delivered or collected. And you can hover over those jobs and it shows you what they are. We have a couple of manual modes if the user wants to manually allocate jobs to a vehicle. So you can simply click on a job, it will go a solid red colour, and then you can manually allocate it to a vehicle at the right-hand side, where your vehicles that are available are sitting. So you can see there as I scroll through, I've got a number of vehicles, a mix of articulated 26 pallet trailers and rigids. There's also a pen mode where you can actually draw around different jobs. And what you can do is then manually allocate them to vehicles. So if you don't want to click on individual jobs and allocate, you can actually draw around them, and that does jobs en masse. And in fact, if you did that with that data set on the map, you could probably do that in less than a minute. It's very quick. However, the best way to use the platform is to use the optimization button. So by doing so in a minute, I'm going to show you how the jobs are matched against the vehicles, considering all the job attributes such as weight, time windows, special skills. Again, does it have to be done on a Moffat mounted? Does it need a tail lift? Must it be a small vehicle? So the technology platform will consider all of these attributes and rules and only match the jobs against the vehicles that can do them. And it will do those in the most efficient way, which is generally measured by the least number of vehicles and the shortest cumulative miles within the least shift time possible. So that's what the objectives of the system are working to, which is what most organizations want. So if I select the optimization button now, I'm presented with different choices. You have full and you have standard. So full is where you want the algorithm and the platform to choose the vehicles for you. Standard is if you've chosen certain jobs to go in certain vehicles, it will observe the allocations that you've made and then sequence those jobs in the best order. I am, however, going to select full, so that it lets you see how the system works. And what's now happening is the platform is now working out how many vehicles it needs to do all of those deliveries and collections. So planning today for tomorrow, as an example. Now, it's very quick. So this is around 50 jobs, I think about a dozen vehicles, just to give you an idea. It only takes, a few seconds. As you can see, it's completed. And I've deliberately set one job that can't physically be done, which is this job in Wales, just to show you what would happen if something can't go on a vehicle, doesn't have the right skills, the vehicle capacity or time isn't there. It leaves it on the map to say that's not achievable. And maybe you would subcontract that job out as an operator, or maybe you would change your rules and maybe manually allocate it to a vehicle. So I'm going to do that now and just manually allocate that to a vehicle that's not been used. And it takes it off the map and puts it on the vehicle. So you can override the system, but this allows you to see what's legally possible, what can be fitted on without you changing your rules. I'll also select the depot, so you can see where the depot is. So the depot here is in Gloucester, and that's where all the jobs are being planned from or collected back to. So I'm nearly finished the allocation process. I'm now going to show you the job visualization, and then I'll hand back to Andy. So now the optimization cycle is done, I'm going to select the finish button, and I'm going to show you how you visualize the routes. So straight away, you get a dashboard, which we call current summary, which tells me how many resources I've used at the top left, how many jobs were delivered or collected, A key stat on the bottom line left is the number of unplanned jobs, which in this case is 0. That's very important, and that had 4 vehicles that I didn't use. In this use case, it was pallets it was set up, so we delivered 174 and or collected some of those. I hadn't set up my cost or my revenue, but if I did so, it would tell me the total cost of the whole plan and the total revenue against the whole plan. So you can bring that in as a user in the import. But crucially, it's told me my total shift time at the top right and the total distance for all my vehicles to complete that and execute that plan. So all of this has been created with a number of seconds. So one of the big benefits of this type of platform is the speed of and the automation and the quality of the results that you'll get. So if I now wanted to visualize a route on the map, so I could go to that particular route and visualize the route. So if again, you can see the depots in Gloucester, and this is doing a 21 pallet, so that's obviously an articulated vehicle going down to Exmouth and Exeter, and it shows you the sequence that the 3 jobs are being done in. And it tells me our total cumulative miles and time that it takes to execute that. You can also visualize all routes on the map. So rather than visualize individual routes, if I went to visualize all, then you'll see the routes that are there in a different color, and you can see what's happening, you know, as an overview. And as I said earlier, all of that is done in seconds or minutes, depending on the size of data that you're optimizing. So if it was a few hundred records, it would take a number of minutes, not a few seconds. If it was a few thousand records, you know, that might take more number of minutes, but we're still in the minutes rather than the hours. So if we compare that to how long it might take, you know, manual processes to do that, you can see straight away that that should be a big benefit. Wrapping up on the demo, if we go into that particular route that I showed earlier, then if we expand it on the map, you can also see that it's generated an ETA. These jobs are being delivered during the night, so you can see that the ETAs are during the night. And the mobile status, if the app is linked to this, that would give you a live status update to say arrived, en route, collected, delivered, that sort of thing. So you've got a dashboard there that can be live and interactive. But if we don't want to use the digital apps integrated, you can actually just export out in Excel. We could create a run sheet for a driver or a file to be created digitally that could be imported back into the system that the jobs came from. So typical TMS systems is where the source of this data comes from, and we could export back to said TMS system, assuming it can you know, accept the export. So that's a very high level overview. I haven't went through every feature or functionality. Presumably we can handle some of those questions, you know, in the Q&A segment. But I'll hand back to Andy now, and then Andy can talk you through the next segments and the next part of the webinar. Hopefully that's been interesting. Back to you, Andy.
Thanks, Colin. Absolutely fascinating as always. Was it you were a brave man to use that was the live site, I take it, and using live data? Colin, can you come back?
Sorry, Andy. Yeah.
I've just got before I let you off the hook and you go and have a 2 minutes of relaxation. I just had a few questions for you before you step down. So those were real jobs in the live system that you were taking us through there?
Yeah, it was a live system. It was anonymized data, of course, but it was a live platform being used in real time. It wasn't a demo. And I was probably even braver because I live in the Scottish borders and I'm actually paired with my phone today rather than my broadband. So that was actually being demoed live through 4G. So it does prove that you can actually use it from anywhere and even through a phone.
Right. And so it was May, I think, last year, and who knew what lay ahead of us over these past few months at that time when we were first discussing the My Transport Planner service and you were taking us through the business. Just give the viewers just a quick update on how things have progressed during that period. And by the way, folks, please I've pushed some questions in so you can see what questions we've got coming up after we've had this session, the presentation. So please keep putting your questions in. I'm going to post them into the answered area of the Q&A platform. So it looks like they've already been answered, but I wanted you as the delegates to see the questions that are coming up and see what other people are asking. So please feel free to fill in the gaps. But anyhow, back to you, Colin. Give us a quick update of how things have gone over the past 12 or 11 months or so.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, as I'm sure it has been for a lot of organisations. I mean, we've benefited from COVID in the sense that because we've created a digital platform, transport managers have been able to use it from home. And because there's no fuss on integration and installation, it's been a quick process for a lot of organisations who've maybe had to change their business models to cope with, the last 10, 12 months. So, we have a number of different clients on our website as case studies. So we have companies who have changed their model from, maybe branch model where goods are maybe collected from them by their customers to a full delivery model. So they've used our platform to enable that. We've managed to land some clients along the way that have done that. So at Selco, the builders merchants have changed their model slightly to do more deliveries rather than collections from branches. So that's one good example. And we have a company in London who changed their model to deliver fruit and vegetables, rather than the customers come to the markets to get them. So we've seen quite a lot of customers changing their models, and our platform has enabled them to consider that and use it, quite a lot of cases from home. I think the other thing worth mentioning is we've been doing a lot of consultative work where clients are looking to model what might happen with their businesses during COVID, but also as they come out of the current climate. And I think we're about to hear in due course from Scott, which is a company that's done just that. So quite a lot of our work over the last year has been consultative work and using our experience in the sector and our toolkit to be able to help those clients understand their changing business models.
So you mentioned Selco there. How many other customers have you got using the service?
So since we launched last May, we've probably added around one a week, Andy. So we have around 40 odd registrations to the platform, but that excludes a lot of the consultancy work that we do. Obviously, they don't necessarily use the platform, the technology. We are using our toolkit and expertise to help them to do that. So the client base overall is in excess of 50. So I think, to be fair, we're really pleased with that in this climate. I think we'd be very happy to, have signed up to that before launch.
Very good. And plenty in the pipeline as well?
Yes, there is. So we're hoping that, as the restrictions get lifted, I mean, it's not all about COVID for sure, but we feel that a lot of them will be ready to go. So we have quite a large pipeline. I mean, there's a few hundred companies expressed interest, and the collective amount of vehicles, is in the tens of thousands if they all signed up. I'm sure they won't all sign up. It would be nice if they did, but the pipeline is fairly significant, and we're starting to see the interest, starting to crystallise now, which is good.
Brilliant. Right. Well, you mentioned user case studies there in your presentation and just in our Q&A there, and I'm going to introduce now our other guest speaker this morning, a chap called Scott Barry. So Colin, you can go and have a quick cuppa now, and we'll get you back in a few minutes to answer some more questions. And please keep the questions coming through, because we've got a bit of time we'll have plenty of time at the end of the session. So Scott Barry, if you join us in the room. Hello. Say hello to Scott, everybody. So Scott Barry is the head of transport at Advanced Supply Chain Group. It was an organisation I didn't know much about until we had a chat a couple of weeks ago. So to set the scene before we get into the sort of user case study around how you've been interacting with the algorithm people, perhaps Scott, you'd just tell us a little bit about the company and the organisation.
Yeah, certainly. Morning, everybody. So yeah, you're quite right, Andy. Advanced Supply Chain, probably not one of the most common companies that you've come across. However, we are a global brand, and we specialise in multiple different services for a vast array of customers: supply chain management, fulfilment, value-added services. And one of our main attractions is our intelligent supply chain model. So we basically react to whatever our customers need across the variation of different demands. and ultimately a slogan is better, faster, cheaper, and ultimately that needs technology. We are, I think you touched on it, in terms of as garments sector, key customers, ASOS, Boohoo, Primark, Asda, all obviously themes that they're in the garment industry. Warehousing, IT, freight forwarding, international road freight, and then ultimately what I head up in terms of UK transport, is just really a bolt-on in terms of the size of our business. The transport sector is a small element, but a key element. You know, customers want all the clever, fast IT, but they also want the branded truck with the driver in uniform, handling the goods, to see through that at the end of the supply chain. So we've got bases all over the world, various operating centres in the UK, offices in Dubai, Hong Kong, site at Czech Republic, and we reach out to partners all over the world, including America, France, etc.
So I guess in an organisation like yours, then, you know, you in order to embed your service in your client's business, you've got to be pretty, you know, strong on digitisation and your IT systems and setups for the transfer of data and loads, etc. What sort of infrastructure do you have in place to manage the traffic at the moment? Is it bespoke, or are you using third-party systems?
No, so it's a variation of technology driven, but ultimately the old school style of a traffic desk. So we've got the setup of operators, traffic planners, you know, a standard traffic desk setup, transport managers, etc. But the key element is the technology. So, you know, most companies these days have got some sort of device, whether it's home built or off the shelf purchase. So we've got a driver app, a delivery application that we've built ourselves as IT department. Have built that with, you know, the clever developers that you tell them what you want, and ultimately they lock themselves in a room for hours and days, and then there's an output of the device, and you trial it and make some tweaks. So that's all developed in-house, like I say, it's a clever development team. And then we bolt onto it, you know, whether there's a new customer demand or something in the market changes, it's all a touch of our own guys, so we can change that and tweak it as we see fit. So that's available on the iTunes, and we've just developed that now, so it's available on Android and smartphone. So that were a big investment, because we also want as partners to be able to operate that technology as well. So basically, as drivers, when they're out on the road, they're operating, for everybody on the call, almost like a DPD scenario where, to simplify it, the collections and the deliveries on our app, and it's a touch button. I'm on site, I'm off site, I've collected, scanned PODs, photos, basically every variation of a delivery or collection that you can get to provide the end user with whatever they need, a signed POD, an e-POD, a picture of the parcel on the back door, whatever it is. The drivers use the device, and that's obviously a live feed back to the traffic desk. So it's not the, you know, 500 phone calls a day, and that links in with the telematics on the trucks. So you know where the driver is, where the truck is at all times, and then they're updating you if they're stationary, what the progress is of that collection or delivery. And we've also got functions where that sends out feeds as well, to us customers and as supply base. Right,
and that's a journey so far. I know you've been working with Colin and Colin Ferguson and the algorithm people, using their consultancy services, some of the My Transport Planner platform applications as a modelling tool for your new business opportunities. Take us through that, because I think this is a really interesting bit where, you know, people see My Transport Planner and think, oh, it's a routing and scheduling service to run my business, but actually you've got quite an interesting angle on that.
Yeah, so we were introduced to Colin and the team through a partner. You know, as Colin's just described, sounds super exciting. Everybody will sit there and go, how can I use this function to improve my business, regardless of your size or your infrastructure? So we tried the conversation of we need data, we need to download as much data from our system as we can, and we need to provide it to the algorithm people and put it through my planner to see, you know, ultimately the aim is I plan a week, a day with a human, a traffic planner who's got, you know, geographical knowledge and understanding of all the customers. What would the system say? So would it be able to do the same plan in a shorter period of time and save vehicles? Would it save miles? Would it ultimately improve the bottom line and drive efficiencies, but also do it in a quicker time, and remove the human error element that we'll all come across? Now, as I've touched on, our business is very, very quirky in terms of its customer base. So we've got a standard 26 pallet requirement. We've got thousands of hanging garments of various different sizes and quantities. We've got cartons palletized and loose that we need to plan by cubic meters. So to get all that data and extract it from our system, although the algorithm people were sat ready for that data to pump it through that platform to give us the output, the extraction part in our business was a bit of a blocker. So that then brought me on to how can I still trial this progress and see if there's any efficiencies. Now, we've in Advanced Group, we've got a history of growth 20% year on year, and a lot of that is IT and warehouse driven, but it also is in transport. So the amount of conversations, customer demands or tenders that come across our commercial team, and normally they are quite, you know, a high demand in terms of speed of response. So I got a request from an existing customer, a bit off track in terms of their requirements. It was all around the time that just as we approached the COVID scenario. So basically, they had 383, I think it was, locations in the UK from Cornwall to Scotland, with multiple daily deliveries, palletized goods from 1 pallet up to 10 pallets, multiple variations of vehicle requirements, vans, rigids, arctics, on a set delivery service per week. And we got the data. We got a big dump of, here's the Excel spreadsheet, you know, 600,000 units. I think it was over 100,000 pallets delivering to these 383 locations with a very bold question: can you do this? How would you do it? And what's the cost? And you sit there going, wow. And can you get back to us in a week? That kind of scenario. And then they give you have a few conference calls with them, and they actually give you an idea of a price per pallet that they're already looking at, because they already do this in their network and they're doing a cost exercise. Is it worth us keeping it? Do we use a 3PL, etc.? So one, it's very, very timely, the demand of the response. Two, you've got to understand whether you can actually do it. What would that look like? Does it fit into your existing traffic model? And all your flows that you've got in your different traffic areas? Is there a purchase of vehicles required? So does this drive 20 vans and I've only got 3? Is it more rigid based? All them, so many questions by just looking at that data. Now, naturally, we would download that data, put it into a scheduling system, our ATMS, Active Transport Management System, and we would probably sit a traffic planner in a dark room for a week and say, here's all that data. I need you to do 2 things. I need you to plan it, as in the locations that you've got, what vehicle sizes it is, what days, and what the trailer fill will be in terms of the pallets per delivery per day, etc. One, what parts of that and what percentage of that fit into our current operating model? So if we get today's plan, how many of them deliveries and collections sit in today's plan and improve efficiency? And then how much falls out of that plan and needs more assets, more drivers, and even more potentially management costs? So that would be the process. A week might not be enough. It was a hell of a lot of data. So we started that process, a planner system, working through all the data, and then literally just had a thought, well, why don't we try Colin and the team and float the idea and see if the algorithm, my planner system can get us to his end result of what does this look like? Because ultimately we've got to provide the customer with, you wanted it at X pallet, price per pallet, and we can get to a cheaper cost, and this is how we do it, etc., etc. So we did that. The data was provided. Speaking with Colin and the team, we understood what data we needed to provide to put it into my planner. But ultimately, as Colin touched on, the key part of this is the optimization button. So we didn't need the traffic planner in a dark room for a week. We made sure all the data was available. Yes, we had to go back to the customer and say, right, you've given us the store locations, the pallets, can we have the weight? Can we have the delivery frequency? So a couple of questions, which would be in a normal RFQ or tender process. Go back to Colin, here you go, run it through the system. And before you know it, in matter of minutes, you're starting to form a base of, go back to the map that you saw with the red dots. It starts forming into, well, hold on a minute, that'd be 99 routes on Tuesday. It'd need 13 rigids and 7 Arctics. On Wednesday, you'd need double that. But on Thursday, the delivery profile says that there's hardly any vehicles. So straight away, in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, I've got questions to go back to customer and say, can this delivery schedule be smoothed? Because I need 60 new assets on Tuesday, but on Thursday, I need 5. So I would potentially, if I would not know that within a week, I'd be waiting for my planner to feed back. He might not spot that. He might just give me the output. He might not highlight them, oh, you need to go and ask this question to the customer. And then ultimately, my traffic planner give us an outturn of what didn't fit in, which wouldn't happen either. So it said, in your 12,000 pallets in that week, delivering to all these stores around the country, I've got these 3 pallets here for Aberdeen that don't fit into any plan. I can't optimize it. You would be putting another vehicle on to run to Aberdeen, obviously not cost effective. So it will leave them as and this is a request that we had, would we use third-party subcontract partners to do X amount of pallets per day? And we then need to factor them in at a different price because they're not on our vehicle. We need to understand that costing. And then ultimately, within about 4 or 5 hours, back and forth with a customer, we had a starting point of a price per pallet to provide that they could benchmark against their current operating model within their business. And then the conversation started to flow. Now, the other caveat to that is, if as we asked the customer more questions, we would, in a normal world, the traffic planner sat in a dark room for a week, he's done his output, he's given me the price, how we would do it, I've got all my answers, I can start flowing conversations with customer. What he doesn't then, he's used assumptions that, well, every delivery point, 383 stores, are all Arctics, or I'll check Google Maps to see if I can get in, but I can't really see the delivery bay, so I'll assume because there's a weight limit on that road, it's a 7.5 ton. And he's got so many assumptions, maybe 300 assumptions, because the customer's not provided absolute specifics in terms of vehicle restrictions. They've got the vehicle they use after a few questions. But ultimately, my point is, if you change anything apart in that current modelling system, anything that planner's used as a guideline, you want to change that. He's going back and basically starting
Back
again.
to the start again.
That week, maybe 3 days, he might be able to do it a bit quicker because he's got a starting point. But that process just starts again, and he's very, very slow and clunky. With my planner, you are just changing, like Colin touched on. Well, actually, I've assumed that all my vehicles are run at 53 mile an hour. I want to change that to 50 for whatever reason. Click a button, optimize. Minutes later, you've got a new plan. That might add a vehicle in on every day from one site, or you might up the speed and it might remove a vehicle from another site. Actually, I've just got confirmation that half of the pallets are chilled pallets and they weigh more. So I'll change that assumption, re-optimize. That changes the whole plan. So it's very live and very responsive in terms of not only starting to build that that case for a tender, but actually as the customer answer questions, just live updating it through my planner, and not, back to the planner in the back room where the more you push on him and the more timely it is, the more chance you're going to get a human error element. And you're making decisions on the output of what he's given you.
Yeah, and I think we've chatted again previously about that. Often there's a focus on cost. It's all about the money, but I think you've got to. I think from your point of view, it's about time. Where I think what you've articulated very well there is that it's about time, and obviously that does equal money eventually in wages or whatever. But it's that speed of response that's given you that good food for thought on using the service.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the time, you've got two elements really. You've got the time that the customer wants a response. The last thing you want to be saying is, "Oh, your deadline's Friday. Can I push it back?" Even if you've had to go back and ask more questions and there's a delayed response. But ultimately, they've got a deadline for a reason. They've got to go and make decisions in their business based on your feedback. So you want to stick to that timeline. But more importantly, that traffic planner that I talk about, doesn't matter whether it's a commercial person who's working on contracts and has got a transport understanding, whether it's a traffic planner that you're taking out of the operation, all that is salaried cost, hourly cost. It's a cost per week. If you take the planner out, you need to backfill in with somebody. You might be in a holiday period where you haven't got how many transport companies have a spare resource in case a tender comes to the fore. So you might not even have that resource. But ultimately, that week that I talk about is a cost. And the advantage of the algorithm people and the traffic planner is, one, the time, but ultimately there's so many different functions you can use in terms of the commercials. Benchmarking exercises. Colin and his team know that by the chances that you're using the algorithm platform to get an output. Well, the conversations I had was, well, if I've used it to model the whole work, if I win the work, why would I put that into my system?
Yeah.
Your system can actually plan it in 4 minutes. So obviously the view is, can I have a benchmarking exercise and support me in this tender document, but actually with a view of, if we contractually win the work, we'll use that platform to plan the work because it's quicker. Otherwise, I'm going and spending X amount on a salary for a new planner.
Yeah.
So there's so many different elements to the time. There's the time going forward of any new headcounts you might need, but also the time of that person sat in a room on, for 50 hours on X salary per week, really.
Yeah. Fascinating. You quite rightly have spoken about, I think we all know that an algorithm and any system is only as good as the intelligence that you put into it. How do you go about that? That must be all that setup has got to be the sort of most involved and time-consuming part of this process, isn't it?
For us, it was. I mean, the starting point back to our business, first conversations with Colin and the team, we had no understanding of what it could do until conversations developed. And then you get a data request. Now, the time-consuming element was us trying to extract all that data to go into a format that then did all the clever optimization. Open and honest, once you've had that conversation once and you understand the data that is required to do the optimization for you, that doesn't change.
Right.
So once you've understood that once, it's a natural flow.
Yeah.
And so if you've got 10 tenders in a week, you would have a headline of, right, I need the weight, I need the postcode, I need X, Y, and Z. I need 10 key factors.
You're up and running. Yeah.
To start that optimization. And in time, I can ask more questions and get more data. But all that will do is fine tune the detail of that optimization to make sure it's more accurate. So it all depends really on the data extract from your system or from a customer or a tender, because the algorithm platform is as clever as it can be. You give it the data and it will give you the best possible optimized plan with the most efficiency that's available.
Right.
But it's only as good as what you've told it.
Yeah. So let's bring in Colin Ferguson here. Colin, you've switch back on and come back into the room, because I'm interested to hear how this will come on to questions. And so please put your questions up on the Q&A panel, and I'll and we'll start to answer those in a second. Just before we move on from this, Scott's given us a sort of fascinating insight in his user case. And I hope that I think that contract's been paused at the moment, hasn't it? So hopefully at some stage that will come back live and you'll win it, and you'll be using the My Transport Planner application. But what sort of support does the algorithm people, My Transport Planner, you personally, Colin, give to clients to walk them through this process?
Yeah, and it's a clear three-step process. Part of it Scott's described. So the first leg of the journey, if you like, is we offer a free benchmark service, and we have separate benchmarking tools and business analysts that do that work, generally in Excel, to make sure that we can help the client, and we do all of that work. So we take the logic, the values, the depots information, the stop time, whether it's chilled, frozen, ambient, as Scott alluded to as a use case. So the first step is a free benchmarking using our analysts and various tools that we have, including even Excel. The next step is if the client wants to actually do like a modelling or consultancy piece where we actually do more advanced modelling, and that might be a paid for service, that might be either us using My Transport Planner or the client using My Transport Planner. So that's step 2, so that's the platform. And then we hope step 3 is then the client uses the platform in a BAU scenario to then continue. Now, clearly, some clients go straight to BAU. They register on the website, start using it, off they go. Some clients just try us out in the free benchmark, and fair enough, that's great. We'll help out and we'll see where that takes us. And then quite often clients will go on to the using the platform and the paid consultancy. So that's the process. That's the support we provide. It's a clear 3-step proven process for us. And we hope that at the end we get to step 3 within that process.
Right. Okay. Right. Let's go to we'll go to a few of the questions, and we've got 15 minutes or so. So let's have a rattle through those. So a lot of these are for Colin, but I'll get you on for a few answers as well, Scott, as the questions are relevant. So Colin, it says first question is difference between the contract-based version and the pay-as-you-go version. What extras do I get on the contract-based version of My Transport Planner? Just briefly give an overview on that would be great.
The features and functionality are the same. I think it's just the commercial model is different. So basically, if you're on demand or paying as you go, the route per day price per vehicle is slightly higher than if you signed up for a 12-month contract, 24, 36, 48. So that's the answer. The functionality, you're not getting any less. We actually started off last year with less functionality, separating the functionality from My Transport Planner Pro and the platform. But really, the difference is now is the mobile app and the commercial model. That's the answer, really.
Okay, a couple of questions here that are more or less related. So one here, I've looked at route optimization before and it was too expensive. How does My Transport Planner stand in terms of pricing? Is it the same as others or cheaper? That's along a similar line. Another question, typically route optimization is only stacked up for the bigger operators. Is your system affordable for the little guys?
I would say it's affordable for all. That's how we've set the model up, and we're not distinguishing between small, medium and large. The price is the same for everyone. So we actually publish the prices on mytransportplanner.com. So we're very transparent on that. But to give a sense, we are very competitive in the market. And the route per day per vehicle ranges from 49 pence on a long-term contract to up to 99 pence on an on-demand price. So if you take somewhere in the middle as a blended rate, 60, 70 pence per vehicle per day, all we really need to do is save more fuel than that or more time than that, and so on and so forth to get an ROI. But we encourage clients to try that out because it's a no-brainer. If you buy a few routes for a few vehicles for a week, you try the system out, you'll very quickly know if it works for you. So I would say yes, it has been designed for everyone, including SMEs, and the pricing is competitive.
Okay. Another one here. Is the system able to allocate delivery volume over multiple locations, each with multiple delivery windows, thereby balancing volume over the scheduling period to reduce hours, trips, kilometer KPIs? Similar question asked around is picking up on multiple depots. Can it? The example you showed was a single depot operation. Just give us a little bit, perhaps answer that question.
Sure. So I think what's important to know here is the platform version that I demonstrated. It is the full version, but I was showing it on a day example. The two methods of getting jobs into the system is either via a batch import or an API. So to do multiple days, multiple depots, multiple sites, you really need to be hooked up to the API because you need to put more information into the system, whereas the import on Excel tend to be today for a future plan, today for tomorrow, today for 2 days time. So yes, the system will handle multiple days, multiple depots. Even the day version handles multiple depots, multiple locations, in multiple time windows. The only feature that you really need the API for is if you were doing overnights.
Right. Okay. I think you've touched on this already, but can the system cope with planning collections after deliveries have been made? So it's the sort of full milk round capability.
Yes, short answer. I mean, it can be handled through a time window. The system's clever enough to know it needs to discharge the delivery weight and space to make the collection. So it can do it either as the deliveries are happening based on that logic, or it can be done after, I think, to answer the initial question.
Okay, so here's a complex one. We currently use an optimization engine for planning, delivery and collections within the parcel delivery sector. A standard depot may operate 200 routes with 25,000 stops, whereas a larger depot may operate 300 routes with up to 40,000 stops. Can your algorithm cope with this volume of routes and stops?
Yes, is the short answer. So we have deployed our platform and the technology around it. So there's various APIs into mapping technology and different things on Amazon EC2, so an elastic cloud service. So the more requests that you give to the algorithm, the infrastructure scales up. We do need to kind of size every opportunity. So it might be in that use case, we might want to spin up another instance just for that particular customer. So then it doesn't degrade, the main platform if they've got that volume going through. But the short answer is yes. It's just around configuration setup and how it's done. And we also find a lot of the time with a bigger problem, if it's depot, you can chunk down the depot planning into lots of different individual depots or areas within a depot if they're planning within postcode areas, which is very common in the parcel sector. So 40,000 records could be split into multiple problems if they're planning in areas. So there's multiple ways to handle it.
Right. Okay. We'll bring one for Scott. So bring you back off mute, please, Scott. Scott, it sounds like My Transport Planner gave you a real advantage in terms of bidding for and winning that contract, although you haven't won it yet. Is this something you will use again going forward? And do you see it as being one of your key planning tools? Yeah,
certainly. So we only didn't win it because it was just timely with the lockdown. So obviously all these shops that I quoted actually shut. So with the good news that they're reopening, we'll recommence that conversation. It was vital. This specific customer were benchmarking the requirements against their current operating model. So it weren't even a straightforward tender process where we're up against other competitors. They were benchmarking it against their current model. So our timeliness were absolutely key because it helped them make decisions. And ultimately, as we tweaked the questions and the responses, we tweaked the algorithm people's data that we're pushing through, re-optimized, and we did actually get to where we wanted to be to provide that price. So we will continue to have them negotiations with the customer. We might even revisit the data that's sat in the platform ready, and certainly any more opportunities that come through with any complexity that would take time to model, we would certainly look at using the platform, yeah, because it's proven for a very complex customer with a very complex requirement.
Right. Okay, thank you. Does My Transport Planner, one for Colin, does My Transport Planner provide a return on investment? What sort of metrics can I expect in terms of benefits? For example, percentage saving on costs and mileage, increases in vehicle utilization. Perhaps you've got some background data from that, you're sort of benchmarking everybody as an aggregate. Are you able to offer us some insights there, Colin, from the users?
Yeah, we do that every month in terms of the client base that we've got to see what the average savings are. So where we're helping clients out, maybe do resequencing, so that's keeping the same routes, the same vehicles, but just a better sequence to see if we can improve that. Typically we're reducing the mileage and time, shift time to say 5%. Clearly, if it's the same routes, we're not changing vehicle utilization. Where we're doing full optimization, so that's changing the vehicles and the sequence, but still working within the business rules of the client. Typically we see it's anywhere between 10 and 20% reduction in miles, shift time, and a similar increase in vehicle productivity and utilization. And then where we're able to change the rules, so come at it blue sky and say, well, you're doing this on a Tuesday, here's your time windows, why don't you do it on a Thursday and have a different time window? We see somewhere between 20 and 30%, so it's far higher. Sometimes clients can't change the rules that easily, so we understand that, but it lets them see the price of change should they wish to do it. So it kind of gets us to an average, 15, 20%, give or take, is our average customer savings on a reduction of miles, reduction in shift time and increase in vehicle utilization. And what we've actually seen during COVID is some of those clients have used the savings for headroom within the same cost base to take on more workload because they've been busier. Others have switched that and took the benefit of the saving to maybe put some vehicles off the road for a temporary period of time. So when the market conditions are busy or not, and depending on who's busy and who's not, they can use the platform in different modes to get the best out of it.
Right. We touched on, I think, sustainability in one of your early slides. There's a question here about, does your system cater for electric vehicles?
Yes, yeah, it caters for range, and we can have a recharge time back at the depot. Most commercial fleets, the charging infrastructure will be at the depot. There are a few field service engineers, etc., where vans and vehicles are taken home if they're LCVs, but generally, and we can support that as well if that's where the infrastructure is. Although normally our experience is they're recharged in the evening if that's the case. But if it's depot recharging during the day, yes, we can support that. At the minute, I don't think there's a public infrastructure out there right now to do opportunity charging and guarantee that the post will be available when you pitch up. If it could, we can support that as well, and that's coming, and it's coming very quickly. There's a lot more infrastructure being put in place, but most commercial fleets, in my experience, will charge at the depot during the day or in the evening, and we can support that through the platform.
Okay, so a few bits and pieces here just on future development. Is there any current functionality or planned to manage or optimize multi-compartment vehicles, thinking chilled, frozen and ambient, for example? And similarly, there's one here. Can your platform optimize cabin and welfare work against crane capability? So it's just adapting then to quite specific use cases.
Yeah, so taking the latter first, yes, the system has attributes which can be set up against the resource and the job, so it's only going to match whatever attributes can do the job. So that covers a multitude of use cases, from hazardous drivers to tail lift to cranes to whatever it may be. I think on the first one, do you want to just give me the question again on that, Andy, just to be specific?
It was multi-compartment
chilled and
chilled, ambient, and etc.
Yeah, so there's multiple quantity or capacity boxes on it. So that at the minute assumes, you have a capacity for compartment A, a capacity for compartment B, a capacity for compartment C, if you wanted to do it that way. So yes, we can. The however is in the MyTransport platform UI version, you can't set any more than 2 quantities in capacity. So if you have a movable compartment that's more than 2 within a vehicle, you really need to use the API. So it's the same answer as the overnight question, where we can support that, but it needs to be supported through the API, not through the user interface version.
Got it. A little bit of question on integration. I've got an existing mobile app of my own. How do I integrate with my transport planner using the app, or can I integrate it?
Yeah, in principle, yes. We wouldn't integrate directly with the mobile app. We would probably integrate with the mobile app provider or their server. And the key is if it's got an API. So if the mobile app's got an API, we can push to that API from my transport planner, yes. Or that provider might want to consume our API to then get the jobs up to their servers and down to the mobile app. So the short answer is yes. The devil was in the detail. We would need to know more.
Who the provider is.
But in principle, yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I've got 3 more questions. I'll just ask you. I hope nobody minds if we just run over a little bit. How often are average road speeds updated? Presumably you have default values that you put in, but is that always configurable for different applications? Yeah.
So the mapping API is a part that controls that. So we don't provide the maps within the software. So that the answer to the question is how often the mapping provider updates their maps. But we find that's pretty real time. Pretty often. But actually, what we find in the real world, whilst we set default speeds and hook up to the APIs, the client will often set their own speeds. And for example, they might slow down an agency driver because they know that the driver might not have the same knowledge as the other driver. So it's not about a vehicle speed, it's maybe about a driver profile. There's other use cases as well. What we've seen in COVID is actually with the traffic conditions being less busy in general, in most areas, they've actually used their system to speed up to get more work done because they can still within legal limits. But that's very pertinent because actually sometimes the mapping providers' average speeds won't be how it was yesterday or last week. It might be a month ago or longer. So when COVID's come in, you'd be looking to hook into speeds that are accurate and configurable by you rather than maybe historic averages. So we find most clients will configure their own speeds.
Right. So I guess this is similar as well. The question, how does the algorithm cope with road diverts, holiday traffic, accidents, Friday traffic? That's all being driven by the mapping application. And how does it recalculate the alternative routes?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to that. Yes, it is the mapping layer, if you like, that controls things like that, those examples. The algorithm and the platform, I mean, there's a lot of intelligence in the platform, separating that out from the algorithm because they're 2 separate components. The algorithm is doing the calculation of the road speeds and the matrix between all the points based on the mapping layer's information. And the platform is where you configure all the rules, etc., etc. But the second part to the answer is the most planning is done today for tomorrow or today for the future. So you wouldn't know if there's an accident in real time when you're doing your planning. You only know that there's an accident on the day when the driver's out. Now, yes, the system can calculate in real time should the user want to do that, but most often or not, it's just dealt with as an exception, a pragmatic exception, because if the goods, say like Scott's goods are product and their garments, specific sizes and so on, and perhaps let's say that was a home delivery, it doesn't matter that the driver can reroute because in the end, he's got the goods in the vehicle and another driver can't do it. They might want to route around the accident, but that's usually done by the sat nav or by exception management, not by the platform. But the platform is capable of doing it.
Yeah, and our final question, how would the transport planner work in a general haulage situation? We've looked at a lot of sort of more contract situations here. Any comments on that?
Yeah, it works well. I mean, we have a number of different clients who use the platform for just that. I think clearly, most general haulage are collecting at one place, delivering at another, perhaps on the day, rather than collecting from a depot, returning to a depot. They might be doing collections and deliveries out in the field, perhaps doing overnights. So I think what we find there is most clients will want to hook up to the API and hook that API up to their TMS because actually they want that live feed and they want more complex functionality, where someone who's doing multi-drop, that's perhaps rather simpler, and you can import and just hit go. So general haulage is a little bit more complex, but yes, we can support it.
Okay. All right. Great. Very good. Well, it's 11:34. So thank you for everybody for sticking with us, and my apologies for the timekeeping and just running over there a little bit, but I wanted to try and get everybody's questions answered. We will follow up with an email to everybody that's joined today or has registered, so that so you'll be able to hear those questions again and try and give you a more so a follow-up of the Q&A in a more structured sense by a text document. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today with the latest commercial motor webinar. A special thanks to our two speakers, to Scott Barry, Head of Transport at the Advanced Supply Chain Group, and of course thanks to Colin Ferguson, CEO at the Algorithm People. And thanks to you, our delegates, for joining us this morning. I hope you found it useful. I hope we've answered all your, or a good chunk of your questions satisfactorily. And I'd like to hope that you'll tune in to our next webinar very soon. So we'll be back in touch. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.